Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner, and we're back. It's time to get back to work because we have the Men's Road World Championship coming up in 2 weeks' time, and Tadej Pogačar just got done racing yesterday at Grand Prix Quebec, and he's on fantastic form. Well, okay, maybe not. Let's not use the word fantastic. We know he's on good form. When you look at the race over there, it's got quality guys showing up at the race, but UAE team members are coming to win with Tadej Pogačar. It was his first race back from the Tour de France. And while the Tour de France, the Tour of Spain have finished since the time of the Tour of Spain, Primož Roglič has announced that he wants to do the Road World Championships, and it's on his list. That means right now that Slovenia goes from being second, third, fourth, fifth best team at the Road World Championships, at least until we saw Grand Prix Quebec, where we know Tadej Pogačar's form is definitely solid enough to go into the Road World Championships, being one of the #1 ranked riders there. But along with Primož Roglič announcing that he's going to do the Road World Championships, with Slovenia having two riders, the first and the third best rider in the world, with Tadej Pogačar and Primož Roglič number 3, they automatically start going up to the #1 team at the Road World Championships, which means they have to have the weight of controlling the race at the Road World Championships. That race being over 250 kilometers long, it's a tall order, but they have a stacked team, and they have, as I already told you, the first and the third best rider in the world. One won the Giro and the Tour de France, along with everything else. And then, of course, Primož Roglič winning Dauphiné and then crashing out of the Tour de France and coming to Spain and winning the Tour of Spain. Now, as I told you guys at the Butterfly Effect, I didn't think Primož Roglic's form was really 100% at Spain. I always thought he was a little bit down below, kind of the way that we saw him race the Giro d'Italia last year when he won the pink jersey there, where he was carrying form and having good days, having bad days, but it wasn't his best until, of course, that penultimate time trial of the Giro d'Italia where he came good. Here at the Tour of Spain, we saw where, of course, his team was sick, so we didn't get to see Primož Roglič, I don't believe, become his best. He had some very good days. We saw him win 3 stages of the Tour of Spain. He was no slouch by any means, but I don't think it was his best form. But now, since the Tour of Spain is finished, assuming he wasn't sick when his teammates Vlasov and Danny Martinez had to drop out late in the Vuelta a España with just the last mountain stage to go, when we saw that, that left a little bit of doubt whether or not if Primož Roglič would get sick, as I told you during the Butterfly Effect, but he looked to be solid. He went through the Tour of Spain, assuming he didn't get sick at that same time with his team, without any major accidents, crashes, sickness, and stuff like that that would drop his fitness coming down. Now, I've told you guys many times when we're comparing Tadej Pogačar, I think the closest rider in the world to Tadej Pogačar, the #1 ranked rider in the world, is Primož Roglič, the other Slovenian. I have him ranked 3rd, and a lot of times I see comments where you guys are saying, Chris, when are you going to put Remco Evenepoel over Primož Roglič? Well, I'm not going to do it because Primož Roglič has always had legitimate reasons why his form has dipped. When you saw him this year at the Basque Country, just with sparkling, fantastic, sharp form there at the Basque Country, but then he crashes on stage 4 with Jonas and with, of course, with Remco Evenepoel, with all the favorites there getting ready for the Tour de France minus Tadej Pogačar. That drops your form. There's no way you come back from those crashes and you don't just get back up on your bike and feel fantastic. Comes into the Tour de France, wasn't looking the best of the best, but he was carrying decent form, and then he crashed twice, which is going to knock his form back down. He comes into Spain, he does a Grand Tour, he wins a Grand Tour along with 3 stages, and now his form should be coming back up. So when he announces that he's doing the Road World Championships with 3 weeks plus coming out of the Vuelta a España to get ready for the Road World Championships and the individual time trial that's on his resume starting up too. So he has time now to carry that form from Spain, assuming he wasn't sick. We know he didn't have any major crashes or incidents coming out of Spain. Now we could start to see at the Road World Championships Tadej Pogačar and Primož Roglič on top form. Certainly Roglic's form should only be going up and up. And if Tadej Pogačar had the right amount of rest, not too much, not too little after the Tour de France, which is what it looks like after the Quebec race, where his form will just keep getting sharper, and 2 weeks to go before the Road World Championships. Those two guys, the biggest dilemma they're going to have for Slovenia is who will they work for if there's a scenario where they lose a lot of their teammates from having to work early in the road race. Will Tadej Pogačar ride for Primož Roglič or Primož Roglič ride for Tadej Pogačar? That could be the biggest dilemma there if they don't have a solid team. But let's go back into the Quebec race and just dissect a little bit with Tadej Pogačar, because after that race, hopefully you guys have watched it. If not, this is going to be a spoiler, so definitely click off. But if you've watched that race, you know afterwards from his interview that he said he messed up at the finish. Okay, I believe he messed up at the finish too, but that's in hindsight. At that moment, when we take you into the last lap with 12 kilometers to go, we go in with UAE team members riding the front. They rode the front with the last few laps to go, setting a hard pace, trying to make the race as hard as they possibly could. But mainly throughout that race, it was, of course, Lotto Destiny riding for Arnaud Delis, and it was Intermarché riding for one Biniam Girmay, who won many stages at the Tour de France this year. Those two teams did the bulk of the work. Brought back the two riders up front when we're talking about Schmidt and Van den Broek, brought them back late in that race, and then UAE team members really set a hard pace the last time coming through the last start-finish line there, and then through the park. We see Matteo Jorgensen from Visma Lease Bike throw an attack. I didn't like this move. Matteo Jorgensen is way too good of a rider to be attacking with 10 kilometers to go as you're coming through the park, because once you drop out of the park and make that left turn along the coast, I did this race many times throughout my career in different forms, but I have done both these races in this identical form, and certainly did the last time I did it was in 2014 with Lamprey. So when you come out of that park and you're along the river there and you're going full gas, for Matteo Jorgensen to be able to hold off the peloton with 2-3 teams back there chasing. Lotto Destiny was on the front. UAE team members, as I said, were setting tempo coming down and out through the park. And then Ineos were on the front chasing Matteo Jorgensen. Once he comes into the last left turn and starts that super steep finish all the way up with about 3.5 kilometers to go, it goes up super steep. We're talking about 14, 15% sections of a few hundred meters. And then it's lefts, rights, curvies, dips, downs, back up again. But when we see Matteo Jorgensen do that tack, I didn't like it. He's too good of a rider, and now he needs to play his card differently, because on a course finish like this, Matteo Jorgensen has a shot that if they hesitate somewhere after the first steep section of that climb, that's the time to go. But when they hesitated through the park, it's too far for the Visma Lease bike rider to win. So as we come into that last 3.5 kilometers to go and start to climb proper, we see it's Julien Alaphilippe, the Frenchman, Giro d'Italia winner, this stage winner, this year in 2024. Coming on some good form, and he's thrown in big accelerations with Lotto Destiny following directly on his wheel. And Tadej Pogačar, the UAE team member, it's #1 ranked rider in the world, closing the gap up there to Julien Alaphilippe and Lotto Destiny, with other Lotto Destiny riders on his wheel, and of course one Arnaud Delis, who rides for Lotto Destiny. So that's 3 riders with Jorgensen in that picture, and Julien Alaphilippe on the front. Julien Alaphilippe wisely backs off the throttle. We see a little bit more hesitation. Julien Alaphilippe throws in another acceleration, and then Tadej Pogačar goes to work right around 2.1, 2.3 kilometer to go, and throws in a nasty acceleration that only, we see the Belgium rider there in the Belgium Championship jersey there, Arnaud Delis, can follow. Now Arnaud Delis is at maximum at this point in time. If we're going back to the interview with Tadej Pogačar saying where he messed up, this would be where he messed up, but it's not a mess up per se, because Tadej Pogačar hasn't raced since the Tour de France. I would have played it identically the same way that Tadej Pogačar did. You see Arnaud Delis, Belgian rider, national championship. As I told you, he's wearing the jersey right at this moment. This guy's got some power. He can do these kind of climbs, and he's got a sprint. So Tadej Pogačar doesn't exactly know where his form is. When you finish the Tour de France and you come into this race, and it's a 200-kilometer race, it's difficult, hard race with acceleration, stops, slows, big time, super steep climbs, lefts, right turns, big accelerations. This is the kind of course where if Tadej Pogačar doesn't back off with Arnaud Delis on his wheel, possibly Arnaud Delis feels fit enough to be able to jump. And Tadej Pogačar, since he hasn't raced since the Tour de France, doesn't know exactly how deep his legs and his fitness can go. So at that moment, this mistake that he calls it later, and I agree later with his comment that it's a mistake, but as I said, I would have done the same. It's because he doesn't know exactly where his level is compared to what we saw at the Tour de France and what we saw at the Giro d'Italia. That kind of level of fitness, you would have just kept going, accelerating there, probably would have popped Arnaud Delis, who is, I believe, at the absolute maximum, and then we see Tadej Pogačar solo to win. But when you're coming out of the Tour de France and it's your first race back, and you have some doubts in your head, and every time when I was a professional rider coming back from a rest period, you always have a little bit of doubts. You know your form's good, but you don't know exactly how good. So Tadej Pogačar hesitates a little bit. We see a lot of Destiny riders come back to the front. They start setting tempo with 2 teammates there for Arnaud Delis, but they're not going quite fast enough to hold off the peloton back there. We come into about 500 meters to go, and we see it's the Jaco Lula rider there, Michael Matthews, that's closing up the gap there. Then we see Tadej Pogačar looking over his shoulder, waiting for the acceleration. He knows it's going to come. We see Bahrain victorious, Pello Bilbao there, throwing an acceleration. Tadej Pogačar closes it. But then this is when he's starting to probably feel all the efforts for his first race back at the Tour de France, as Michael Matthews is attacking just beyond 300 meters to go. And we see Tadej Pogačar looking right over his shoulders, and he knows bling, right? These guys are friends. They train together. They hang out together. But at this moment, once he sees Michael Matthews going and he can't jump directly over behind the wheel there of the Australian rider, at this moment, this is where his form's probably starting to drop. And what he's missing, why I'm bringing this up, as we see Michael Matthews drill it all the way into the line to win a 3rd victory here at the Quebec race, what Tadej Pogačar's feeling at this moment is just his first race back. So what he says in his interview afterwards, with it being a mistake, I agree it's a mistake, but it's one I would have made myself. And I also agree, as Tadej Pogačar said, that his legs, he's very happy where his form is. He thinks it'll be better for tomorrow's race in Montreal, and more importantly, he thinks it'll be better in 2 weeks' time for the Road World Championships. And I got to agree, if you're coming back after the Tour de France finished in July, this is your first race back, you can put in the kind of attacks that we saw, the last accelerations there, going up the final climb there in Quebec, and his team's rode the front, hard 200 kilometers of racing. Tadej Pogačar is going to be very sharp. Could even be much better for tomorrow's Sunday race. Sometimes I've seen it when I'm coming back from good racing, where like the Tour de France, and your form dips a little bit and you come back to the first race, you look this sharp. It could be he loses a little bit, but since it's Tadej Pogačar, we all got to agree that most likely at Montreal in tomorrow's race in Canada, he's going to be sharper and better there, and the climb's a little bit longer there, so it's set up a little bit more for the Slovenian. So once he finishes Montreal race, we're going to know for sure what kind of fitness Tadej Pogačar has. And with 2 weeks to get ready for the Road World Championships, Slovenia, along with Primož Roglič and Tadej Pogačar, will absolutely be the favorite team there to win the championships, Road World Championships that is. And when we compare it to the Belgian team, where they no longer have Wout van Aert because of the crash that he had at the Tour of Spain, he's out and the season's done, means all the weight's going to be put on Remco Evenepoel. So we're going to see where the last few seasons, where we've seen Belgium come in there with Remco Evenepoel and Wout van Aert as the outright favorite team at the Road World Championships. I know Tadej Pogačar showed up in Australia and did some of the Road World Championships, but in general, most of the time, the Slovenians didn't have their number 1 and number 3 best rider in the world there at the Road World Championships. This year, we could see Primož Roglič, Tadej Pogačar both on 100% form in 2 weeks' time, and it could be their best shot. The biggest dilemma I think they'll have for Team Slovenia is if their team falls apart, and they need that one extra rider. Will it be Primož Roglič riding for Tadej Pogačar, or will Tadej Pogačar be riding for Primož Roglič? Well, it all started in yesterday's race there at Quebec, seeing that Tadej Pogačar is on form, and of course, with the announcement of Primož Roglič saying that he is doing the Road World Championships and the individual time trial championships. So like and subscribe. I'll bring you guys some more content in the near future.